Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. Today I'm going to share a fun fold with you, which is a step card but also acts as an easel card. So I'm going to call this a Centre Step Easel card. And this is what it looks like. Then when you close it, I've also stamped the back of it. The stamp set I'm using is called Oceanfront, and you can find it on page 39. I'm going to use it in conjunction with the On the Horizon stamp set as well, and you can find that on page 42 and 43. The On the Horizon bundle also has the Horizon dies, and it comes from the New Horizons suite in the January to June 2022 mini. So there's the Oceanfront stamp set. It's in photopolymer, and the On the Horizon one is in cling. And these are the dies, so we're going to be using the fence and the foliage. I'm also going to be using these two stamps in the Friends Are Like Seashells. I've used that on here to decorate this portion of the card. For the sky bit of the card, I've got So Saffron, Polished Pink and Calypso Coral. You also need a blending brush. And for the beach and the sea, I've got Crumb Cake and Balmy Blue. Tuxedo Black Memento ink for the silhouette on the trees. Black Stampin' Write marker pen. You also need a Clear Wink of Stella glitter brush. And the Pebble enamel shapes. Stamping Up is no longer putting things on back order, so if it's out of stock they'll switch the code off and say that it's currently unavailable. So at the time of filming these are not available, so keep checking the website to see when they're back in stock. And a scrap of basic white to stamp your seashells. Now to make this card you really need the length of the card to be 12 inches. If you purchase the 12 by 12 inch packs, they come in the colour families in an assortment pack, and there are 2 each of 10 colours in the brights, neutrals, regals or subtles. In the in colour ones, then there are 20 sheets and there are 4 each in 5 colours. But my top tip is really just to buy it in basic white, and then you get 12 sheets in the pack, and from each 12-inch sheet you can get 2 cards. And then if you want to add colour, then you just use coloured cardstock on top. And although this is quite flimsy, by the time you put the matte layers on it will make it quite strong and sturdy. So this is what I mean, just use that as your card base, and then by the time you put your matte layers on this will be quite strong. So for the card base you cut it at 5 3/4 inches, and if you're in America you probably cut it by 5 1/2, but I like mine at 5 3/4 so it will fit in an ordinary C6 envelope. Now that's been cut at 5 3/4 by 12 inches, I want to line up the right edge to the right of the cutting groove at 1 inch. I'm going to just put my cutting blade at the 1 inch mark and press it down, lift the blade up and then put it at 5 1/8 and press down, and then cut from 5 1/8 up to the 1 inch mark. And you know when it hits the 1 inch mark because your cutting blade will just drop into the groove because you've already made a pinprick there with your cutting blade. Slide your cardstock to the right and align the left edge at the 1 inch mark. Make sure that that blade is at 1 inch. Shut the arm and just press it down to make a mark at the 1 inch mark. Lift the arm up, slide it along to 5 1/8 inch. Shut that and cut from 5 1/8 inch up to the 1 inch mark. I prefer to use the scoreboard because it's much easier to see. Then put this on the long side at the top of your scoreboard, and you want to score at 1 inch, 2 inches and at 5 1/8 inches. Okay, and then at 8 1/4 you score all the way down. Flip your cardstock over this side on the reverse and then opposite side at the same measurements. So it's 1 inch, 2 inch, 5 1/8, and then your 8 1/4 has already been scored all the way down. Now you need to score at 4 1/8 in between the cut lines. So get your ruler, butt it up at 4 1/8 to find where the groove is, and score between the cut lines. So flip the cardstock back over and then just go over the previously scored bits. Now you want the outside fold, the 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter fold as a mountain fold. Your next fold on the 2 inch or 5 centimeter score line is a valley fold, and the next two are mountain folds. So this is a mountain fold and so is that one. Okay, and then this one folds up. So burnish the folds. There's rather a lot of layers to contend with, so let's start with these two side panels here, and these measure 3 inches by 7/8 inches. In metric that's 2 centimeters by 7.5 centimeters. So I've got that in the coloured cardstock in Balmy Blue. Then the DSP to go on is from the New Horizons papers, and I've cut these 3/4 inches by 6 inches, and that's to go here and here. So I won't trim this until later, once we've stamped the inside of the center panel. So you need the piece for the front step of the easel. It is 5 5/8 by 7/8. In metric that will be 14 centimeters by 2 centimeters. Then we need the front step matte layer, which is 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and we're going to need to stamp on this, so that will be 1.5 by 13.5 in metric. I'm going to set that aside as well. Now we'll do the matte layer for the center. That's in Balmy Blue, and that measures 3 1/16. I know it's a funny measurement, but if I went any smaller then there was a huge gap down here, so that's why it's a funny measurement. So that measures 3 1/16 by 3 5/8. So let's glue that down. Then you have the matte layer for this, and that measures 3 inches by 3 1/2 inches, and in metric that's 7.3 by 8.5 centimeters. So we'll set that aside too, because we'll need to stamp on it. The next layer is for the base of the card, and this is in Balmy Blue, and that measures 3 5/8 by 5 5/8. Then the basic white piece to go on top measures 3 inches by 3 1/2 inches, and in metric that will be 8.5 by 13.5 centimeters. And you have the stopper, so that goes across there, and that measures 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. In metric that's 2 centimeters by 14 centimeters. And then the bit that goes on top, which has been stamped, is in basic white, and that measures 5/8 inches by 5 3/8 inches, and in metric that's 1.5 by 13.5 centimeters. Don't worry about writing it down. I'll put a link to my blog, and all the measurements are on my blog. So first I'm going to decorate the bottom of the card, because I know I'll forget, and I'll just stamp randomly. Then fold the card out so I've got a flatter surface to stamp on. I'm going to stamp off, stamp on. And I'm just going to use the blending brush on the bottom here. Then I'm going to switch inks, blending brushes, and then just blend randomly. Just a hint of colour so it's not so plain white. Use my black marker pen and then just draw some birds in flight. Because this is a photopolymer stamp, I need a cushion underneath, so I've put some foam pads underneath. I forgot to press record. I've used this stamp and stamped randomly on the inside of the card, this piece here. I'll also need to stamp on the stopper mechanism. No two will look the same, they'll be all different. And I'm going to use this speckled bit to stamp some grains of sand randomly. And now I can glue these pieces onto the card base, leaving an even border all round. I forgot, I should have put a bit of blue on there. Just a hint of colour. Now when you have so many pieces at stake, just remember which goes with what. So this stopper one is actually narrower than the one that goes on here for the sentiment. So this is for the stopper. Now I want to put my stopper on here. Okay, so see what that card comes to. About there, so that gives you somewhere to write as well. Chop some of this off. These are the foam pads. Align it so that these edges are flush with the cardstock. Next I'm going to stamp the seashells, and I'm just going to fussy cut both of these, and I'll do it off camera and I'll be back. Now I've fussy cut them and then just manipulated the cardstock and made it curve a little bit. Pop the dimensional on the back and put one shell here, and I've got dimensionals on this one, mini ones on the smaller shell, and I'll pop that one there. And then use my Wink of Stella brush and colour those in. So we've started from the bottom up. Now we've done the base and the stopper. So now we're going to tackle the front step and the centre panel. So I'm going to take the small square of white, which is the centre panel, and pop that into my Stamparatus. And I'll start with the Daffodil Delight ink. I'm going to stamp my sky. Clean the stamp, come in with the polished pink and ink up the stamp on the sides. And I'm going to pounce on some of the areas as well and stamp. I'm just going to use the leftover ink to just blend a little bit the corners so it doesn't look so white. I also use some of the Calypso coral to add a bit around the edges, like so. Next, bring in the Balmy Blue, and I'm just going to use this stamp to stamp the water. Now I'm going to anchor this paper so it doesn't move. Bring in my Tuxedo Black Memento ink, ink up the trees and stamp. Now if I didn't get the stamp in the correct position and there's still some blues showing, I've just used the black marker pen to cover it up. I've put a post-it note there because I don't want all the birds to stamp. I only want the trio, which is here. We'll set that aside, and now we want to stamp the front step card in Balmy Blue. So I'm just going to colour that blue, and because the designer series paper has got sort of purple hues, I'm just going to introduce another colour which I forgot to mention, Highland Heather, and I'm just going to blend a little bit of purple here to tie in with the designer series paper. I've gone ahead and pre-die cut the fences, and you need 2 to give it added strength. 2 of the smaller ones and 2 larger ones. I actually cut a 6x6 inch piece of basic white cardstock and put the adhesive sheet backing on it, and then out of the whole sheet I got 6 pairs of fences, and then you can just bag them for use next time. Now this die only cuts the grass facing this way, so all you have to do, if you want this side to show, then just cut it on the reverse. So I'll do that off camera and I'll be back. Peel off the adhesive sheet and glue that on top of the fence. The reason I'm putting a double layer is because the basic white on its own is quite flimsy, so you can put a double layer on it. So do the same for the smaller fence. So I want to give the fence a bit of texture, so I'm going to stamp that. Now we can glue these pieces onto our card front. I'm just going to pop some dimensionals on my fence. And I'll pop one in the middle, round about there. I'm going to trim some of this off because it's too long. Just manipulate the fence a little wavy and undulate, and pop that there. Make sure your foam adhesive strip doesn't extend beyond the step, because you don't want it sticking to that back, otherwise your card won't open. Manipulate that a little bit and pop that on. And this was a special one, so That's too long, so I need to trim that off a little bit. Pop adhesive just on the bottom. Use the leftover bit for this side and just put it on the bottom. And then the finishing touch is to pop some of these pebbles on here. So next comes the tricky bit, to try and line that up. I want the horizon to be at the same level as that tree. So I'm going to look at it from the side, and I obviously need to trim off about a quarter of an inch. Better to cut off too little than too much. So this matte layer measures 2 7/8 inches. So now I can cut that off and glue that in. So do the same for this side. You can just put a piece of pattern paper, higgledy-piggledy, and then you won't need to be so pedantic about it. I wanted the continuation of that horizontal line, so I think that fits the bill perfectly. Before I go, here's one with the portrait orientation. This time I've used the rocks as well, and the other stamp in the stamp set. And this time with the sky, instead of using a blending brush, I just used the ink pad and took a shimmy and took off some of the ink to do that. And this, I think, is from Paradise Palms. Or you could do it really simply, and this is tone on tone with the scallop and contour dies, and it's just simplified the stamping. So that's today's card. All the links are below this video in the show more section. I'll leave a link in the show more section as well to the blog post, so you can get all the measurements for the different pieces of cardstock and matte layers. This is the back or the bottom of the card, so that's been decorated as well. It's already really quite thick, so I didn't want to add more layers to it. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial, and pop back for more inspiration next time. In the meantime, you can find me on Facebook, Pinterest or Instagram. Thanks for watching. Bye.